talking about? I don't think I have sound, but yep, that's Harry Potter Worlds. Yeah, we know. Oops. Oh no. So as you walk into the queue, you see it's actually Hogwarts. You know, here's the points for the different houses. That's actually different every day and stuff. It just changes. I'm not sure what governs it, but something does. Got big fancy statues. Oh, I wish I had timestamps memorized. And I wish oh, here we go. We got talking paintings. So there are videos, obviously, but they're interactive videos. For anyone who went to the Boston Medical Device Day last year, there was a Disney Imagineer there who was talking about how they create these immersive experiences by talking with the animatronics, getting the animatronics to talk back and whatnot. This is a great example of it, where the pre-programmed surroundings to say they'll take like particular features they're trained to look for and mock people in the audience, or just use vague blanket statements so that you feel like they're talking about someone in particular when they're really not. Fancy, fancy, fancy. Harry Potter, most expensive, talking paintings again, which is a really cool aspect of it. You go through like the whole Hogwarts thing. When you have to go to outside queues, they bring you out into like the botanical gardens. Every so often they do like queue hang-ups, like around here, which is supposed to be your Dumbledore's office, I think. This is the part I think it is. And what they do with queue hang-ups is, yeah, see, they have the characters talk to you. So they have a bunch of people like billow into one room and then all disperse. And what this does is it makes people feel like something more important is happening when the line is stopped. They're playing this cool event, and then it continues. Yeah, that's enough of this. Oh boy, I can't see. Oh, can someone hit escape, please? Did not get this through. Okay. Oh boy. Can you open PowerPoint, please? There we go. Okay, thank you for that. So now let's get to the meat and potatoes, which is I'm sure what everyone was expecting to hear about, which is the attractions themselves. They are the lifeblood of the parks. Because no one comes back from the poll, except for those who are already heavily invested in theme parks, come back and say, wow, check out this really cool meal I had at this one restaurant. Or no one says, wow, I bought this one t-shirt after waiting 3 hours in line at Goofy's Shirtapalooza or something. Everyone's talking about their favorite rides, right? Let's be honest. So a lot of the rides is illusions. This kind of like immersion and getting people to look past what's there, suspension of disbelief, is most emphasized in the rides. And so there's a famous quote, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And especially the younger audiences or people who don't think too hard about it, is really true for some of these things I'm going to show off. They really drive every aspect of the parks because the rides build the theme and story of each area. Each area then comes together to build the parks. With that in mind, I'm going to talk about, basically, this was really hard for me to select just a couple rides to talk about. So I broke them down into a couple quick categories that really don't mean anything. First things first, I'm going to highlight 2 rides that I call illusion rides. So these are where, though they might not be technologically the most advanced, they really do showcase some of the stuff I'm trying to talk about. The first one is Disney's Animal Kingdom's Expedition Everest. Expedition Everest is a roller coaster where you change tracks not once, but twice during the ride. And the thing is, a lot of people are completely taken surprise when the tracks change. The answer is, why is that? And the answer is incredibly solid theming. Sleight of hand. So you know the classic, like, watch this hand while I do something else with this, right? Magician's tricks. They take this up on a large scale. The idea is you're on an expedition on Mount Everest, and you are assaulted by the Yeti. So as the ride is going around, at one point, it pulls the ride up to a set of broken tracks. And it just stops. People are like, what the hell? Everyone's muttering amongst themselves. So like, where does the ride go from here? Where does the ride go from here? You know, there's flashlights of the Yeti, and the whole time that it pulls in and stops with like a loud, audible screeching noise, they use all this like sound effects and flashing a video of the Yeti to distract everyone while the rail changes behind them, and then they shoot backwards. And then not only did they pull the wool over your eyes once, but twice. Because later in the ride, they have to find a way to get the ride moving forward again. So there's a second point where you pull to another stop, and the Yeti himself swings down and tries to attack your cart. So everything freezes again, there's shaking, there's videos, there's an animatronic that flashes and plays, and the whole time, as you're distracted by all these sensory overload basically from every direction, they switch the rails again, and you shoot off forward right past the Yeti. So this is like a really basic example of just how can you distract people without making them realize, like, how do you make them pay no attention to the man behind the mask, or mirror, or curtain? That's the one I'm looking for. I'm a theme park person, not a Wizard of Oz person. But you know what I'm saying? Like, how can you distract them long enough to make these changes without making them realize they're happening? Another great example is Indiana Jones, and it's actually, I think it's called the Indiana Jones Journey in Disneyland, California. So this bottom picture, just before I get into the actual illusion, ignore the GIF on top, or GIF if you so prefer. I just want to talk about illusions. A lot of it comes from the technology of the ride in itself. It's not always just about like distracting people while you change things, but also just how can you more properly simulate something. So in this case, the Indiana Jones ride is ridden in Jeeps, 4-row Jeeps, and they're called enhanced motion vehicles. What's really cool about them is the Jeep's suspension system. Within each one, they follow tracks, but there's a whole complex system that can move the car forwards, backwards, sideways, basically a full degree of motion. So what this does, it means that you can really keep the track very simple, very plain, but still give the illusion of crazy wild motion by jerking guests around, by moving the entire thing on top of the tracks. So it stays solid, but it really lets you capture, you know? And this is what makes this one an illusion ride. The premise of this one is, you're going to a cursed temple to find Indiana Jones. He's gone missing, and clearly everyone thinks it's a good idea to send tourists to find him. So in this cursed temple, there's an ancient goddess who represents really 3 domains. And there's supposed to be 3 things she can grant you, which are like eternal immortality, or rather eternal youth, eternal knowledge, or like eternal passion or something. I'm not really sure, because I haven't ever been on it, because I haven't been to California in a long time. But the idea is, what they market it as is every time you ride the ride, it'll randomly select one of the 3 paths, and the experience will be different every time. What's really beautiful about it is the ride is only one track. So instead of swiveling the ride, the doors, what they do is there is a fake wall that has all the different, it actually has tracks on it. They never do anything, and all they do is they rotate the doors. It's like, basically, do I have a pointer? I'm gonna borrow this. May I borrow this? Thank you. So, if you look at this blue part here, this is always there, which is a stone facade. Only the green part moves. All the green part is kind of just like an empty shell that has the 3 fake doors on it. So the door itself is just a skin you put on the real door, and that changes. Everything else stays solid. But you think, well, I ride this twice. How do I not realize it's the same thing? The truth is, for each of the tracks is associated with a color, red, green, blue. And then the room is designed with 3 sets of lights, red, green, blue. Green pointed up, red pointed flat, blue pointed down. So the room is built dark and in such a way so that when it randomly selects one for you to go to as the ride is starting, it'll flash on one of the lights, which will only illuminate certain features in the room. And therefore, by changing the door, it's able to feel like a completely different ride with completely different architecture, all on one track. Every time you ride it, it can be something different for 3 times. And I really like that solution. It lets you keep a small space, and everyone can have multiple experiences with it. It adds a level of, I don't want to say replayability, but rewritability. Because another aspect is you want people to keep coming back, obviously. You want people to feel justified in spending this much money. When you're spending that much money, you really don't have the time to ride multiple rides multiple times in the same day, right? So this way, something like this, or Star Tours, where it actually randomly generates the path every time you take it, really adds to that level of, I can keep coming back and feel like I'm doing something different every time, even though you're really not. That's the beauty of it. Oh, this is a fun one. So I'm going to show you some Winnie the Pooh here, but it's really cool stuff. So this next category I want to talk about is called tech rides. These aren't so much like illusions as the first 2, but these are just really cool technology in theme parks that does something really different from what's out there. First I'm going to talk about is Pooh's Honey Hunt in Tokyo Disney. What's really cool about this is they have adapted. I don't know if you can see from here because it's kind of dark, but the cars in the ride don't actually have tracks. They free roam throughout the ride. Each car communicates short range with the cars in front of it, and they all communicate with a server inside the building. Cars are launched in pairs, and what this does is every car knows it has a series of events within the ride it needs to hit, but then the way it handles these events, or the way it goes into them, can be different every time based off basically randomly generated algorithms. So the greatest, actually this video here, I'm going to skip through it, but it has 2 rides back to back, so you can see how it's different every time. The real claim to fame on this one, besides being the first trackless ride, is there's this one room that's really cool where basically the cars enter and they randomly pair up and dance with each other to the music. And so what happens is that dance is going to be different every time. The music's going to be different every time. Not this. This is just Winnie the Pooh. Hi, Winnie. The Tigger room is really cool too. So right here, this is just fun stuff. This is the illusion. So the cars kind of like have only a little bit of range of motion inside the cars. But as Tigger's bouncing, they bounce the scenery up and down. And by mixing that with just a little bit of give in the car, it feels like everything's bouncing, and people have actually had to pause the ride getting nauseous from it. Just from the illusion that they're actually bouncing crazy amounts when they're really moving less than an inch. I thought that was cool. And then he gets a honey hive on his head. Ooh, actually this is a really cool thing I want to talk about, even though it's not really super important in the ride. this kind of technology, I'm sure you've seen it before. So what they do for this kind of thing is it is a combination of animatronics, statues, screens, projectors, and just good lighting. So they can take something physical and make it look like it's fading away, or completely change the landscape all in one go, timed with the cars themselves. It's particularly emphasized in this ride because the cars kind of just come and go, so they can time it with the cars instead of like a hard-coded type timing. This is the dance room, by the way. So you see this car has randomly paired up with that one. Now it's going to switch partners. Wish I had the music playing, but they pan her up, they spin around, they dance about the scene for a bit, and they eventually exit with the car they originally left with, even though they're not dancing with that car. And the way it does it is you're held in there for a certain amount of time. So let's say it keeps an even amount, an equilibrium. So like let's say, I think it's 6 or 8 cars are in there dancing at all times. 2 will leave as 2 more enter. They dance about. 2 will leave as 2 more enter. And it's all like perfectly metered out. And that meter, even if there's like a holdup somewhere else in the ride, that meter can keep going because these trackless vehicles are communicating with each other instead of a hard-coded time thing. So if you're, let's say someone gets sick in the ticket room, right? Because the trackless rides, the cars can communicate with each other, the cars in the previous events can continue staying in like the Who's in a Windy Day or in the dance room for a while because they know there's only a holdup here, so we can keep experiencing this event until that holdup is fixed and everything starts moving again, which is way more efficient than say like the older rides where if one person throws up, the entire ride is shut down until they fix it. Everyone dreads that I've been stuck on It's a Small World for 2 hours, but this fixes that. And also Small World gets boring after 5 seconds, let alone 2 hours.
I actually know someone who was stuck on It's a Small World for like 2 hours. Another person.
And I know too. So this is going to be the dance room again. Notice that the patterns are different this time. His car's spinning a lot more. You see he hasn't directly paired up with anyone just yet. Like, it's going to be different every time, basically. Oh, actually, we're leaving the dance room now. Either way, you get what I'm saying. It's just, they change it up. Mirrors, hi, mirrors, and hi, weird elephant beat. Oh, Twister, write it out. Okay, so talking about technology, very few things hold a candle to Twister. For anyone who's ever been to Universal Studios, you all know the movie Twister, right? Storm chasers. Oh, let's go chase storms. I feel reckless, so I'm going to run after tornadoes and throw weather machines into them. So this is the Twister ride in Universal Studios, which isn't, the reason I call them attractions is because it's not really a ride, but it's really more of a stunt show. Twister is famous because you're inside a studio, and they actually show what would happen if there was a Twister in a small town, kind of like the making of effects, including the largest man-made tornado to this date. It's like, I think, a few stories tall and quite a distance wide. So a lot of people, when I was building this, a couple of my friends asked me, how do they simulate the tornado in Twister? And I did some digging into it, and the answer is, they don't. That's a real tornado. The technology is, there is an array of 35 fans across the ceiling, a series of them down each wall and the back, hidden behind the other facades, wherein they will actually spin the air into vortices. What's really cool about it is they draw the air from outside, have sensors along the outside of the building for humidity, air pressure, all that stuff, and use it to generate a tornado within the ride. Then using perspective and whatnot, they're able to make this tornado look way closer than it actually is, despite being far enough away that it's not going to suck your purse off. It's also not that strong, but I don't know, I think it's really cool. And the fun thing about illusions and stuff is, actually, Alex here asked me, how do they get the tornado to be the same every time? And the answer is, they really don't. But since we can't recognize tornadoes like we recognize people, you feel like it is the same every time. There's actually a Universal engineer on file saying, this is the hardest thing to do in the park because we have no control over it. But we remember it, the experience, as being the tornado moves from the left to the right, wrecks all the stuff in its path, and that's the one thing they can hit consistently. But because of that, we fill in the details due to blanks in memory and whatnot, and it creates the illusion that it is the same every time. I just want to get a video of the tornado going.
How do they handle like the wrecking part?
Oh, the wrecking part, that's all rigged on its own. It's like the sign that falls over isn't actually getting pulled by the tornado, but that's it actually jerks over on like a hydraulic arm, basically.
Okay.
Where's the tornado? A flying cow. Oh man. Oh boy. Okay, well, there's a tornado, trust me. Finally, the last thing I want to talk about is just general immersion rides. Rides that, though they might not be the best attractions on their own, even though I think this one really is, are designed to really create that immersive experience I was talking about. This one is Universal Tokyo, Resident Evil Biohazard the Real. In several theme parks, they have shooting gallery rides, like the Buzz Lightyear in Disney or Men in Black in Universal, where you get a little toy gun and you shoot things for points. In Tokyo, though, they don't pull any half measures. There's a Resident Evil ride where you have a cast member escort you through Raccoon City with a fake handgun strapped to your wrist, actually walking through the attraction, shooting actors dressed as zombies. So it's only 2 minutes, we're actually gonna watch this full video. First things first, this is the queue. It is not an immersive experience like I said outside. It is, they make everyone who's going in at once pool up outside of this big theater. And then, once the time for the ride, or show if you will, becomes available, this is what they do. They show you pictures of tourists who are cheering. And then they roll out smoke bombs. And the Umbrella Corps storms out and ushers everyone into the theater. Quickly, they say, quickly, follow us if you want to live. They herd everyone into the theater, they equip them. Yay, zombies! Like, this is one of my favorite examples of immersion, just because they really went all. This is the kind of thing that they can never do in Orlando, because of all kinds of crazy shit. Fake newsstand. They're ready to face zombies, you see?
Lots of happy nation.
Like I said, the employees really take it all out. So going back to the whole theming thing, flickering lights, you have a city facade, employees dressed as government members, saying you're going to need these to survive, here's how you use them, here's how you watch yourself. Along the arm they have like their hit points and their score, as well as their ammo. Basically, I want to go to Tokyo just to ride this. Like, this is cool stuff. People scurry through, flashing lights, actors dressed as zombies who are trained to recognize when they've been fake shot. At some point, if guests are realized to be struggling through the event, since you can't shut down a guest like you can shut down a car, cast members will swoop out of hidden locations. So like behind cars or through certain doorways and stuff will be cast member tunnels. So if you're getting stuck and slowing up the experience, a cast member dressed as an operative will come out and say, come with me, and they'll guide you through the rest of it, just to make sure you're still meeting that pace, as well as adding on to said immersion. And then they talk about their experience, but I don't know. So again, I guess, what are the key points of immersion that I keep referencing? And that is the queue, the theme, the ride, and really the combination of all the above. So the queue builds the story, the ride enforces the story, and the theme is what should shine through the whole time if you did your job well. Any questions? Cool biz. Oh, yes.
What is your favorite example of something done for immersion? Is it the twister? Is it the Raccoon City thing? Or is there a particular gimmick that you thought was just really, really clever?
Like for immersion?
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I think the Raccoon City is definitely up there. Like if I had to pick just one, it'd be difficult. But right now, just since one of the most recent ones I've seen, I think the Raccoon City is definitely up there. Just because I really like how they handled the queue to build the theme. Just the fact that they storm out, saying everybody in now, it gets it going on the right notes. Because you're outside in this peaceful, idyllic park, government officials come out and say, it is not what it's cracked up to be. You go through flickering lights, run down cities, next thing you know, you're fighting fake zombies. Like, I think it really encapsulates an entire story in and of itself, as well as making you feel like the character. Because it's not just, hey, let's watch random people go through the zombie apocalypse. Let's fake do it ourselves. So I think right now, I'd be tempted to say that. Yeah, Dan.
So I'll ask the question. What was an example of a theme park where they really broke the immersion? Where it's like a very terrible experience, and how would you have changed it to make it better?
Good question. So I noticed you said theme park, so I'm not going to answer Six Flags. See, honestly, something I was displeased with is Disney very recently did a big no-no by their own book that they've been working to fix. So with the recent popularized success of Tangled, they decided to add Rapunzel's Tower to the theme parks, right? Unfortunately, they didn't have any space or plans for a new attraction for it, but they wanted it out there ASAP. So they built up Rapunzel's Tower and made it a character meet and greet location where you can go and meet Rapunzel and you can meet Flynn Rider. And unfortunately, Rapunzel's Tower is known for being really, really tall. And so as it stands, they built the tower without fixing the foliage first. So that tower could be seen from the Wild West world. And really all it is a giant beacon of bathrooms and meet and greets. And they have since been fixing it, but at the time I thought it was a big blunder, which kind of surprised me too, coming from that. But I think that'd be one of my examples. Or turning something like Universal taking the property of Storm and making her spinning teacups, but whatever. Jordan, I saw you had a question?
How often do they have to either like change a ride or change an area just